Good evening and welcome to Spanish Standard Radio. I'm your host, Enrique Sanchez. Tonight we have a special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure can. My name is Homero. I am Hispanic, born in Mexico, and I love this country. I think it's the country of opportunities.
Welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
A pleasure.
As we had spoken before, you had mentioned that you were involved in nonprofits. So tell us a little bit about what you do in your nonprofit and how Hispanics contribute to nonprofits locally within the Hispanic community.
Sure. Let me start out with what I used to do in the past. We started a nonprofit a while back in North Hills, and that was for reaching the homeless community. We did uh, become a nonprofit with the board and everything, getting funding. And basically giving food to the homeless community. Slowly, that started growing. After that, at the same time, we were working with another agency in the valley. We built a pantry, which is probably doing over, I'll say 1,400 families to today. Um, I did leave the company last year, and I'm working with another organization here in Westlake, and that's for the Hispanic community. And I'm an employee there. I haven't started it, but I'm most likely, I love helping the community. I love helping people. So sooner or later, I'm going to start another nonprofit, and basically it'll be more about food, serving the community, resources, things like that. So I'm excited for what the future has.
Awesome. Kudos. I really hope you're able to, achieve it. As you know, my
Mhm.
organization, Spanish United, we started about 5 years ago. We started during the pandemic. It was originally online. And even though we're still in the grassroots level, we've been able to establish six chapters. Like the main one is here in Glendale, California, and I have five other chapters in other states. And we're trying to get the process of trying to do a community center because I feel that the Hispanic community needs access to resources, and especially those that are non-English speaking.
Mhm.
When I've done outreach with many Hispanic people that are homeless or those that are afraid to seek help because of their status, we try to do what we can with our limited resources to bring people like food, water, supplies, and we try to refer them to places because in many cases many Hispanic people don't know where to go for services and for help. And as you know, within our community, we tend to be a little bit proud in that aspect, especially when we actually need it. So I think it's very important that my foundation and what you do in your nonprofit exists because there's not too many people or Hispanic leaders that are helping the Hispanic community. There are, but there isn't as many as there should be.
Correct. Over in the organization I work with, CCMP, which is over in Westlake, we do probably about 800 bags of food every Thursday. Tuesdays, 200 bags that, the agency goes outside to District Council District 1. They give out another 200 bags. Fridays, another 200 bags of food. The majority, I would say, are Hispanics. The people probably say about 80% are Hispanics. It's free food that's being given to them. At the same time, we share resources to the community. I think depending on where you go and you do your outreach, that's where the majority of your population are going to be. But there are a lot of help out there for the community. They just need people need to reach out and get that help that is needed. Um, and examples. I'll give you an example. Water and power discounts for DWP. That's something that a lot of Hispanics don't know. But if you qualify, you can get that. On top of that, other resources that are like for assistance for children, for after school programs and things like that. That's what we do at our agency. But And the opportunities to build a nonprofit, and especially for the population of the Hispanics, are enormous here, especially here in LA. But even all over the United States, the opportunities are there. You just gotta, I'm a believer um, that you gotta have the heart to help other people. You have the heart to help other people. And possibilities are there. There's a lot of people that actually want to make so much money in this country that they want to donate money to nonprofit organizations as a tax write-off. So, doing that in having good networking and networking with people that are actually in organizations that have all this money and resources, um, it's a good thing. You know, you'd be surprised how many companies make so much money that they just give you pallets and pallets of product to distribute to the community.
I can
So,
imagine.
yeah, you're talking these organizations that make so much money that they literally will give you pallets of product, whether it's clothing, hygiene supplies, hair products. These are things that they just want to give you because it's a tax write-off for them. So it's all about connection, knowing the right people, and networking with other organizations.
Absolutely. Like that's what I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to
Mhm.
network different organizations. I've done many, I've had many audiences with politicians. Like I've spoken with the mayor of of Glendale, of Burbank, the mayors of the San Gabriel Valley. Yesterday, I happened to meet Congresswoman Sharon Grow. I'm not sure if you know who she is or not. She is of the state Senate,
Mhm.
and I was able to have a conversation with her. But yeah, absolutely, I do believe that building connections and who you know helps. Because I remember when I used to work in the financial industry years ago, one of the tips that I learned in business is that in order to be successful in business, aside from being a good salesman, it's all about building relationships with people. Because when you build relationships with people and people like you, they trust you and they're willing to work with you and invest in you. So I think it's very important that especially within with Hispanic leaders, because I try to build many Hispanic leaders myself within my movement, that it's always good to have relationships with people and also be willing to be coached. So I think that's something that we need in the Hispanic community is mentorship and leadership.
Definitely. It's always. I think I'm having internet cables problems. I don't know if it's you or me. Can you hear me?
I see you and I hear you perfectly fine.
Okay. It's probably me then. Definitely connecting and knowing the right people. It's a plus. The Hispanic community. Um, I mean, where I live in Glendale, and we live in Glendale.
Mm.
You deal with the Armenian community, and right now, of course, we built that at our church, the First Baptist Church of Glendale. We have our own little pantry going on Saturdays, and even dealing with the Armenian community is a little difficult because and comes from other Armenians. The Armenian community, even though they're in need, they don't really want to reach out and get food, free food, because they're very prideful. They're very it's within them, the culture. But we're breaking slowly. We're breaking that barrier, and slowly we're getting a lot of Armenians coming to our pantry. Um, Pantry that comes out on Saturdays, and then we have every Mondays. We have another pantry that has to do with vegetables, and that's things from the farmers market. And we just finished that one up about an hour ago. And they do. We started having Armenians families that actually come in for the vegetables and the fruits, but it's the community, or the Armenian community, is very different from the Hispanic community.
Well, yeah, of
And
course,
then
it's in
Mhm.
many ways.
Yes, so knowing your people, knowing the people that you're serving, it's very very important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like even in San Gabriel, Valley, which is my predominantly Chinese. But in the case of the Chinese community, even though they are more resistant like to ask for help because also in their culture, but at least they're more open and reaching out to people because I've been able to network with many Chinese leaders. I've done work with the Taiwan Center out there, and I've been to China, I've been to Taiwan. I have some basic knowledge of Chinese, so I'm able to network with them. But again, it's all about knowing the culture. But I believe, like you were mentioning, as nonprofits are able to break linguistic and cultural barriers, people will be more open to receiving help. And I think in the case of Hispanic nonprofits like ourselves, like if we're able to help out those, in communities that tend to be more isolated, I think it would, break down stigmas because as you know, Hispanics, we do get a bad reputation for taking and not giving, but I feel that by having nonprofits like ourselves and also training and educating Hispanic people that it's part of our culture to also give because we're known to be generous in Latin America within ourselves. But I feel that if Hispanics in the United States learn to be generous, doesn't necessarily mean having to give 100, 1,000, $3,000. Even if it's 10 or $5, or even donating time, like I've done it in workshops. Don't volunteering doesn't mean giving necessarily money or donating a lot of money, but you could donate a lot in time and also in mentorship. Like a lot of people have told me that a lot of Hispanics, don't have guidance because there aren't any Hispanics that are willing to donate their time that are already successful. Like when I see in St. Gabriel, when I go to St. Gabriel once a month to do work with the Chinese out there, the Chinese have mentorships with their own people. So that way, they could look up to these leaders and not only for financial or resources, but also for guidance. So I feel that if we have more Hispanic leaders that are trained, I think we could do a lot in creating nonprofits and making our Hispanic community more stable and more sustainable.
Definitely. I do believe the Hispanic community likes to, help out. And where we're at, um, we do a lot of, in Westlake, we do a lot of cleanups. And, you tell the volunteers come in at 8 o'clock and a lot of people come in, to do community cleanup, things like that. Um, but you need the leaders, you need people that actually step up and actually lead people, even though just cleaning, you think it's no big deal, but just organizing it, taking the time to wake up early and get the brooms and get the shovels and trash cans and things like that, organizing it so everybody can come together and do a cleanup for the community. That
Absolutely.
takes time. That
I
takes
know.
time. And people don't like to do that, fortunately.
Yeah.
But I
But,
think it's
his
like
within our
the
people, it's like, we have to be encouraged or pushed to do something because it's like, unfortunately, we are conditioned that, when we work, we have to work because we have to survive. But when it comes to helping ourselves or our community, when we tend to be a little bit neglectful in that aspect. But I do believe that if we provide incentives like, hey, if you come out to, bring a broom and clean up, we'll provide food or we'll provide, something that will motivate people. Because again,
Mhm.
our people need to be motivated, for their own good. Because like I said, like we need to have our people learn that if we take up and clean up after ourselves and keep our communities clean, not only it makes us feel better, but at the same time, it gives a better image towards others. Hey, we're working class people, we're hard workers, we have family values, but at the same time, we're also clean. So I think, if we are encouraged to give incentives to our people to pick up a broom, a truck, or a fumigator to clean up the neighborhood, I think that would, help tremendously in creating a
Mhm.
better representation of the Hispanic community towards outsiders.
Sure. I mean, I'm a big believer of incentives. Um, whether it's, me doing a barbecue or taco day or whatever, have incentivize people to go and, do cleanup. And then stay around and eat tacos. That's a good incentive, for people. Um,
Absolutely.
Things like that, or gifts. There are gifts that you can actually give to the people that participate
Yeah,
to either come in,
like
clean
a
up.
gift card or a grocery card or something like that.
Yeah, those are a little bit harder to get, but because it's monetary, and a lot of organizations don't like to give money because of they can get stolen or lost, things like that. But they do give, shampoos or some kind of, like, we get a lot of our high-end products, like sunscreen. And the $30, you look it up on Amazon, they're about $30. And we're giving them away, as incentives for people uh, to participate or answer a few questions, things like that. Body wash, hair product, things like that. There are companies that give those away, so you got to use those as incentives to kind of motivate people to participate and help out. So
So,
definitely.
so working a nonprofit, like, how would you say how's that been your experience from you working, in nonprofit?
Well, definitely nonprofits struggle, because one is it's the money that you're getting is either government funding or funding through grants, fundraising, and things like that. So definitely, when you raise money for nonprofits, it's almost like it's not guaranteed, and things change, depending on, even if you depend on a lot of the money from the government. Every time there's a shift in politics, or you get a new council district person or a new mayor, it's not guaranteed that they're going to continue giving you funding for your programs. So always getting funding through other sources, fundraising and things like that. It's always a good thing, going outside, and you just don't depend on funding from one organization. Go through various organizations to get money. So, but working with nonprofits is a little challenging when it comes to the funding. Um,
Yeah,
but
I know how that is because when I have had audiences like with the mayors and politicians, and I even show them my business plan. Many of them are looking like, okay, great, that sounds nice and all that. But like you mentioned, they really have to be committed and wanting to have a desire because, again, many politicians that they don't really see like a benefit, the house is going to benefit them, even though it could benefit society. They're not going to back it up. So I feel that, it's always good to have government grants, but it's also good to have other sources, let's say like private donors, private philanthropists, or even organizations, because, nonprofit is exactly what it is, nonprofit. Like, I've been doing Spanish United for 5 years, and it's a lot of work, but I don't really get the funding that I would like to get, but I find it
mm,
satisfying because at least I am serving the community that tends to be underserved and underrepresented.
and there's a big population for the Hispanics. There's humongous opportunities to serve the Hispanic community. But then again, it's all about the money too. And politicians don't like to get involved
Exactly,
with it. They
exactly.
don't like to get involved with it because sometimes it's not in their best interest, So depending who you talk to,
Which I find sad. Exactly.
yeah,
Of course,
like
which I
I,
find sad because as a public servant, they're there to serve the interests of the community.
hmm yeah, even right now, like I know the mayor of Burbank, a wonderful lady. She's Nikki Paris. Somebody, I grew up,
Hmm.
I didn't grow up with, but I worked before with her for a couple of years. So I know her, and you know, Burbank is a very prestigious, high-end city. It's its own city, even though it's in LA. Like Glendale, there's very separate. The
Right.
funding, they don't get funding from LA. They got their own. They sustain, LA, the schools and the police departments and fire department. They have their own means to pay for all that. But even, Burbank, it's, you got a mayor that's Latina, and she's very, very outgoing. Uh, Likes to work with the Hispanic community. She loves the Hispanic community. So, even knowing somebody like that, it's always good, but it's like in Glendale, I wish we had a Hispanic mayor one day. It's that'd be good.
Yes, yes, I think that would be a milestone, for Glendale to have a Hispanic mayor.
Yeah.
I think that would bring a lot of positive things for the city.
hmm I think well, Glendale, I've been here in Glendale for what, 48 years. And so it's probably longer than you've been alive.
Yeah, yeah, I've been living here for 16 years.
And the thing is that Glendale is there was a shift. Glendale used to be mostly white and a lot of
Yes.
Hispanics, and now it's majorities are Armenians. But what I'm noticing now is that the Armenian community is actually moving towards the valley now. So if you drive in the valley, Sun Valley or Van Nuys, you see a lot of Armenians over there.
Yeah,
So
Reseda.
hmm they're moving out. They're moving to other places. So, things could shift. I go through Echo Park a lot, and I drive through Echo Park. And I remember Echo Park being one of the worst places you can go, and gang infested. And now you go drive through Echo Park, and man, it's beautiful. The park is clean, and the community's shifting. So, you know, cities shift. Glendale, give it a couple years, might look different from what it is right now. So,
Same thing with Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights was notorious for, gang activity, and now it's
mhm,
majority Caucasian hipsters that live there. Even though it looks kind of the same, because they like to keep the aesthetics the same, but
mhm.
it has shifted demographically, and it's a much better place. But you're right, things shift and change. But within those changes, there needs to be a social safety net for people. I'm a believer myself. I always believe that one that does a good work of charity, is also stating their faith. It's their fruits. So that's one of the motivations that drives me to do Spanish Unite and to be working in a nonprofit and doing outreach, because there was a time when I first moved to Glendale that we were without a car for about 3 years, and it was difficult, and it was through the church that I got integrated with Glendale. So I feel that sometimes we're put in situations that necessarily not be the best, at that moment. But I feel that over time you start to realize that it was a good thing. Hey, I'm still living in Glendale for 16 years, and I'm very fortunate to still be living in the same place. At the same time, I've been able to start a nonprofit where, again, it's hard, and I don't have the funds I would like to have, but at least I'm making a difference. Like it's very important, what type of legacy we can leave for the future generations to look as an example.
Exactly. You're just planting little seeds here and there. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
But
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
going back to Glendale, it's not. I don't want to brag about the city, but um, I work in uh, Westlake. If you know where Westlake's at, it's a little bit more like close to downtown LA.
Hmm.
Driving there, and then all of a sudden, when I get off work and driving back home, as soon as I get to Glendale, it's like there's such a difference in cleanliness. Trees are cut. You don't see graffiti. You don't see homelessness as much. Um,
Night and day.
Big, big shift. I mean, like, never thought about saying, I love my city, but it's when you go through all that in LA and then come back to Glendale, it's like it really makes you appreciate the city.
Yeah, yeah, and even like, for example, Monterey Park. Monterey Park is right next
Mm.
to East LA, And when you go into East LA and come back to Monterey Park again, it's like a complete difference. It's like night and day. But
Yeah,
again, when you live in a place that it's livable, you do learn to appreciate. At the same time, you learn to try to conserve it and try to teach others to try to do the same.
yeah, definitely. Yep. But it's
So
the community is a
yeah,
struggling
go ahead. I'm sorry.
community, that's for sure. The Hispanic community is very it's a community that's struggling. The way I see it over in down the valley, I mean down at downtown LA.
Yeah.
Depending where you go, there's a community that's actually working and thriving and paying their houses and making money, going on vacation and things like that. Then you got the community that's just barely making it. We're getting involved with MacArthur Park. MacArthur Park right now is going through, um, there are going to be some changes going in MacArthur Park. You know, what you do with the
Gentrification?
homelessness. Well, not only that, it's just basically, do you shut down the Wilshire Boulevard that's in MacArthur Park? MacArthur Park used to be one big park.
Right.
Then they put that bridge on Wilshire. So now they want to either take down the bridge or shut it down during the weekends and create events for the community and things like that. But even though the community right now is a lot of Latinos in that area, um, you know, what do they think about their park? Things like that.
Mm.
But it's very high density area. Um, but the community. I mean, there's a lot of need at the same time. Where they need clothing, food, because it's a struggling community.
Yes.
But depending on where you go, again, that area it's definitely it's a community. There's a lot of immigrants that are coming in, families that are working and at the same time trying to do their best to survive and pay their bills. Then you got families that are actually, two or three families living in one apartment unit.
Yeah.
So that's that community, that area, the way it is. So,
So, to close, like what advice would you give to anyone that wants to start a nonprofit? Like, where should they go to start? Well, what would you recommend to them?
um, one thing is you do gotta know your legal when it comes to legality when it comes to putting a nonprofit. Anybody that gets involved in church knows that in church you gotta have not only the pastor, but you also gotta have the board, that runs
Mm.
the church because the church is a nonprofit. Same thing goes with when you build a nonprofit, you gotta have people that are actually will be serving your board. Um, when it comes to the treasurer, your your chairperson, your secretary, all those fundamentals that you need to have in your nonprofit organization. Once you have that, then be able to apply to get the nonprofit permits from the state and federal to make your tax, things like that. And that's your basic. But after that, if you have the heart to build a nonprofit and thrive and to help others, you know, sky's the limit. So it's a good thing
Absolutely,
if you love
absolutely.
helping people, if you love helping people, if you have the heart for it. I love
Of
helping
course,
people.
it's all about the intention.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right
So
then. So
you're not gonna get
anyway,
rich, that's for sure.
oh, I know, believe me, that I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we come to the end of our time, but I want to tell you, Homero, thank you so much for being on the show. You've been an excellent guest. And for all those that are listening on Spanish United Radio, we are on all social media platforms. We are on Spanish United Facebook, Twitter, and known as X, Instagram, YouTube. We are a nonprofit organization. Anything that anyone donates to Spanish United will be used to help someone within the community, regardless if they're Hispanic or not. And as soon as I finish, I will send you the link and you can share it with all of your colleagues. Thank you so much, Romero, for being a guest on the show.
Thank you.
Take care.